Yeah, it's great, Phil. You enjoyed so far. Don't know why we can't have it going live all the places on Facebook. I really don't know what to do. But I don't know, Tim, should we just have a chat anyway? I can see Phil is on and there might be somebody else. So, anyway, good evening. The recording can be shared later. So, with a little delay with technical problems, we are here. So, Tim, very warm welcome
Thank you
to
very much.
this live here. So, Tim, we are going to talk about the future of spiritualism, the year coming up ahead, and beyond that. So, just for start, Tim, your thoughts on spiritualism and where is it heading, and where do you see it going in the near future as well as in the further future?
Um, we just have to, for the sake of your visitors, highlight that we're talking about spiritualism and not mediumship.
Yes.
And because where mediumship's concerned, I'm very, very happy about the strength of mediumship and how it's growing and where it's going. Spiritualism, not so much. It concerns me a little bit, and I'll tell you why. You know, I've been very fortunate that my mother was a spiritualist, and she would take me to the spiritualist churches as a young boy of about 10, 11 years of age. And I think the public view of spiritualism has changed for the positive since then. I'm talking about the 70s, the 1970s, and the early 70s at that. And my mother and I used to have to hide through the streets to go from our home to the spiritualist church through fear of being persecuted. And if anybody saw us who we knew and realized that we were going to the spiritualist church, through fear of being ridiculed by them. So I'm glad to say those days are behind us. But if I talk about the services and the demonstrations, very little has changed since then, in my opinion. Very little has changed. And I think if we are going to, sadly, other than the numbers of the congregations, there are the odd churches, and I know Paul's church, who is holding this Lyceum evening this evening, is very well attended. The numbers of the congregation in my local church, which is the Stafford Spiritualist Church, since lockdown has been lifted because of the virus, they're beginning to creep up. But I think maybe an average congregation in my church would be about 30 people, maybe 35. But I remember when my local church would be full every week. And I'm talking 60, 80, 100 people every week. And something's gone wrong for the numbers to drop away the way they have. Yeah. And I think we have an opportunity because of lockdown, stressful though it was, sad though it was, it's brought about an opportunity for us to grasp this time out, in the physical sense, this time out to refresh. And, you know, since lockdown, I have served a lot of churches, demonstrations and services, but I'm seeing very little difference from before the lockdown. And I fear that it's becoming same old, same old. You know, we've just come through January. And January is named after the Roman god Janus.
Yeah.
A lot of you will know Janus. You don't think you do, but you will. It's that male figure that has two heads, one looking forward and one looking back. And Janus has the ability, as a Roman god, and was actually the first Roman god, to have the ability to look back in time and look forward in time, which is something, of course, in mediumship and in psychic abilities we embrace that ability of seership to move your awareness into the future there. And I think for spiritualism to thrive in the immediate future, we have to do somewhat like Janus. We have to look back to look at what our pioneers have done for us and what lessons they are offering us through their experiences, and grasp them and move forward. And I think we have to be slightly more diverse, especially in the way we present our mediumship. And for example, the last two demonstrations that I've done, the first was with Craig Morris, and I'm sure you know of Craig Morris, Jack.
Yes, I know Craig, yes.
And we decided that we would do an evening of double links.
Yeah.
And for people who are going to watch this, if they're not sure what double links are, it's where both mediums work with and interact with the same communicator. You and I would have done this before, Jack, from the platform, I'm sure. Yeah. And we decided that every message we gave would be a double link. And the congregation loved it. They loved it. It was slightly different than a normal demonstration, yet it was still respectful of the spirit world and for the craft of mediumship. And the congregation loved it. More recently, Jeanette and I did a demonstration, and we did the same. And again, the congregation loved it because of the upbeat energy and how both mediums kind of bounced off of each other, energy-wise and evidence-wise. And it just rose the quality of the mediumship. And I think we have to move away from what's becoming quite staid mediumship. We can all do, every medium in the world professes to be a wonderful medium. There is no medium in the world that says, I'm a rubbish medium. They all profess to be wonderful mediums. And then if you're a wonderful medium, and then have the strength within your mediumship that you suggest to make a difference, to make a change, to be a slightly more diverse in the way that you present your mediumship, that is more modern yet still respectful of the spirit world.
Yeah. and I do agree that things need to change as well. Bringing spiritualism in the future. As we just had a chat before we were trying to go live here. We are live though, not as much as we would like to, but we are live. We were chatting about Martin Kolklov was asked to if it could be. He was sadly he couldn't make it this evening, but he sent me a talk he has done for the SNU at some times. And he's actually putting in some points there that I won't bring forward the entire talk, but there's a few things that actually made me think a little bit about it as well, and it's like a part of it is to some it has become a way to make a living, and I'm not knocking them, as I'm myself is a professional medium and teacher of spiritualist disciplines. But in today's instant lifestyle, with the instant drinks like tea, coffee, and instant foods like pot noodles and copper soups, fast food restaurants and takeaways, people have come to expect the same from spiritualism and phenomena.
Yeah, so it's a very good point.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's a thing to highlight. And where do we actually see this going? Spiritualism going to provide the instance, or what are your thoughts on this, Tim?
Well, it's funny that Martin says, and I respect Martin as a human being and certainly as a medium and a spiritual teacher, and I view him as a friend. It's funny that he says about this instant spiritualism, somewhat like tea and coffee, because when my wife Jeanette rises from the bed every morning, she loves to have a cup of tea, but lately she's been changing because she's becoming tired of tea, and she's beginning to look at different types of coffee, because she's had tea so many years, tea,
Yeah.
tea, that she's beginning to become tired of it. And I fear that that's what's going to happen with spiritualism and mediumship. Really, a medium should only have to demonstrate once in the whole of their career as a medium. They should have to demonstrate mediumship once, and once you've proven that communication, once you've proven the continuity of life, then both the medium and the public should be saying, okay, so what comes after this demonstration of mediumship? And that's where spiritualism steps in, and the different teachings of the spirit world. I have designed, and it was probably about 2 years ago, maybe during lockdown, actually, I designed what I perceive as a modern service. A modern service that is quite different to the average service that you will go and see on a divine service that you will go and see in a church, spiritualist church, on a Sunday. Normally a Sunday evening, a divine service. I've designed a modern version of that, just to be different, just to be modern, just to try and highlight the different expressions of communication that the spirit world have at their hands. And if we continue to churn out the same type of messages, the same kind of services, we are not only limiting the growth of our mediumship, and of our religion that we know as spiritualism, whatever branch of spiritualism you worship under, but we're also limiting the communicational channels of the spirit world. So I agree fully with what Martin's saying. And sometimes we do overly focus. I'm also a professional medium, and I have to, it's my only income. So I have to get out there and earn a wage through my craft that we know as mediumship, on the banner of spiritualism. But maybe I get up in the morning and go out to do a demonstration, not necessarily for the same reasons I did 20 years ago before I became a professional medium. Maybe when it was just purely for the love of it, and the love is still there within my work, but I also have to go and earn a wage, and maybe that dilutes it slightly, makes it slightly more commercial, and we have to be careful that we don't get dragged down that rabbit hole.
And I believe I know that you're still serving the churches.
Absolutely. Only a couple of days ago.
In all respect, and I think sometimes if we're looking at this with the instant things, like you're talking about Jeanette and her morning tea changing to coffee. I've always had my morning coffee. For many years, I've made an old-fashioned coffee pouring hot water up in a filter. Then I went into instant coffee because it was easier early in the morning. Then I had one of those fancy machines where you just put a capsule in.
Yeah.
And these days, first cup of coffee is from the capsule. And while I'm drinking that, I'll make a pot of coffee, old-fashioned way. And if we look at it this way, should it be one or another, or should we try to think in ways where we can combine the old-fashioned spiritualism with the new and modern spiritualism in the same way that we can combine things in our daily life.
But we have to embrace what you've just said, Jack. You've done it with the instant coffee with these little capsules, but then whilst you're drinking that coffee, you've made the effort to make your second cup of coffee in the more traditional way. You've made the effort, and as you know, as mediums and as spiritualists, the moment you say I'm a medium, there's a big responsibility with that statement, and it's not just I am able to give a message. I attend a spiritualist church on a Sunday. There's a lot more to it than just that. It's a responsibility, because the moment you embrace and become that spiritualist, become that medium, you become that ambassador for spirit, which means a bit like you in the morning with your second cup of coffee, when you make the effort, we have to make the effort and recognize that we are bound to make the effort on behalf of the spirit, because we have become ambassadors for the word of spirit, and we can't take that responsibility lightly.
And spring actually another point Martin had in his talk in as well. And he's saying there, some people attend a course, for example, on the Art College, College 1 week, and are teaching the same stuff they learned the next week. One lady, so it's, we see this, people are attending a course a week or weekend, and the week after they're out teaching as well. So maybe we should look at this effort that we're putting into it, not only as mediums but as tutors as well. And what are your thoughts and experiences on this part?
I think, and there are many different schools who present certificates for mediums and for teachings, for teachers of mediumship or spiritual matters, and I fully agree with that. And I know that you're heading the Danish Spiritualist organization, and I'm sure I haven't pronounced that right, but I'm sure you will look at, if you haven't already, education and certificates for mediums and teachers of mediumship. I slightly disagree with what Martin said there. I agree in practice that it's going on, without a doubt. But if you go to somewhere like the Arthur Findlay College and for a week, and just sit there and write down the exercises that the teachers are giving, and I promise you, I have had it. I've taught at the Arthur Findlay College, and one particular chap all week just sat at the back writing. He took part from a practical point of view, but all week just sat there writing down word for word what I was saying. But he can only then go away and teach that from a student's perspective, from a student's point of view. And so, you know, Jackie, you know, you're a very respected teacher in Denmark and beyond Denmark. You could do an exercise and one of your students could go away and say, oh, I like that exercise. I'll give that. I'll start a class and I'll start it with that particular exercise that I saw Jack do. And the way that you present it it's had purpose, it's had educational meaning, and the students have achieved it. And this student goes and does it, and it just crashes because they haven't presented it right, they haven't put the right energy, they haven't got the understanding behind why they're doing that particular exercise or challenge. So I think if a student goes to somewhere like the Arthur Findlay College, writes down a few notes, and then goes off and creates a weekend course themselves, very quickly students will say, hey, this teacher just hasn't got it. And they just won't go to them. And that teacher would have to stop being a teacher because they're not getting the students through the door. I think students will only come through the door if they know within their mind and heart that they're in the company of a good established tutor who is taking them on a journey. And just sitting at the back of a class at the Arthur Findlay College making notes just ain't going to make you the teacher. You know, we know that.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Even though we see it happen, but I think what worth addressing here as well, as you're saying, they are getting the exercise from the point of a student's view. They can maybe present the exercise, but if they don't have the understanding of the mechanism and the aim of the exercise,
absolutely,
they won't be able to support the students during the exercise. So,
what is your aims and objectives in this exercise? Where are you trying to take this student? What is it you're trying to instill in this student? Absolutely. So I've achieved certificates with 3 different schools of mediumship. The ones I choose to announce are those of the SNU, the Spiritualist National Union. But I think from anybody who wants to be a tutor of worth needs to enroll in some kind of educational system that takes them through, not necessarily being the certificated medium. Not all teachers of mediumship are mediums, but have an understanding of teaching and why they're teaching that particular goal and where they're choosing to take the students and why, and become certificated and trained, if you like, in that.
Yeah.
I mean, I know your training as a teacher first came through the army. You and I have spoken about.
Yeah.
And I know you were a teacher of sorts for the army, the Danish army, and I'm sure there was no more tougher teaching to become a teacher or whatever title they gave you of that leader or whatever it was, than a military one. But whatever background you come from, there has to be some kind of foundation in your teaching ability, because it can be dangerous. And the reason I say that is, if a teacher says something to a group of students, and those students trust in that teacher, it automatically, what the teacher just said automatically becomes those students' truths. It becomes their truth. And if it's a false, those students are going to hold on to that truth. And then when they become teachers, they're going to then take that false that they believe is a truth and express it to and share it with their students. Yeah. And that false becomes a big problem within our movement.
Yeah, I agree. I think we see that a lot here in Denmark as well, where, well, as you know, Tim, because you have been several times in Denmark, mediumship and spiritualism is not the biggest thing in Denmark. It's quite new in Denmark in all respect, where the psychic, nothing wrong with that, but the psychic has been the dominating part for 40 odd years. So where mediumship is more a new thing, it is all the old teachings from the psychic, talking a lot about Martinus and different old Danish philosophers, but that's but the teachings from back in the days is just like everybody's just taking them with them. Nobody is actually questioning them.
Yeah. And I guess
And
in
I
the case,
think,
sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
no, yeah, and I think that's part of what we are getting into here is this. I always ask my students and tell my students, don't take anything I says or teach you as the only right thing to do.
Absolutely.
I want
Absolutely.
for you to be a medium in your own right, a medium in your own style. I don't want you to be a copy of me or being a copy of anybody else.
Yeah. You know, we have to question this science that we know as this
Yeah,
spiritual science we know as mediumship and spiritualism. We have to question it so we come to understand it. And it's in that understanding that we move forward. And unless people embrace their responsibility as spiritualists and mediums, um, you know, if we come back to what Martin was, if we come back to what Martin was saying, beg your pardon, I beg your pardon. If we come back to what Martin was saying there about you know, mediums just going off to a course and gathering a few exercises and then going off and teaching. Well, you know, if you had a child, if you were a parent and you had a child, you'd be very, very careful who you allowed to babysit and look after your child. So why do we in mediumship and spiritualism allow anybody to nurture our mystical ability and our spiritual development, i.e. spiritualism? Why do we let just anybody who says, oh, by the way, I'm a teacher, or by the way, I'm a medium?
yeah,
You know, the Scottish, if we go back to when I was quite young, the Scottish approach seemed very tough as spiritualists and mediums. But I fully agree with it. That there would be people who in Scotland who would say, well, by the way, I'm a medium. And the Scottish people would say, fine, prove it.
yes,
Prove it.
yeah,
And we should be willing to do that, both as teachers, as spiritualists, as mediums, so that people are comfortable when we prove through our knowledge and through our understanding of the science and the mechanics of mediumship and spiritualism to put their spirit, their mediumship in our hands so that we can nurture and feed it, so that we have a future. And sadly, if we don't start taking that responsibility, I'm not sure where the future of spiritualism is going.
no. And there's a few comments on here, and going a bit back to you were talking about double links, but I think it brings us into what we're talking about here as well. Phil Shaw is writing here. We certainly get more attendance for double dems than single, and particularly when both medium play off each other. And as Tim says, lift the energy.
Yeah.
And
it doesn't. Sorry, carry on, Jack.
Oh, yeah, and we have Claire says, yes, love that idea. Seeing Chris Drew once doing two different links, also at the same time at different sections in the audience. Love that.
Yeah.
So, so if we're looking at that aspects, maybe a more modern style, more entertaining style. So, Tim, your thoughts on? I know you love the do doublings. I do that as well. You love to play with the mediumship, but do you think spiritualism should look at more entertainment, like in the services and things like that, are we in spiritualism going to put up more of a show than anything else?
It's a word that leaves a bad taste in my mouth, I have to be honest. And I think we have to be careful. So I think our divine services that are mainly held on a Sunday within our religion, some churches, because they may rent rooms and have to rent them on certain days, will hold divine services other than Sundays. However, on the whole, they are held on a Sunday. And I think our divine services should be reverent in their nature, should be spiritual in their nature. In a divine service, we are not gathering, firstly, to listen to someone like you, Jack, giving off wonderful messages from the spirit world. We are gathering in worship to God, however you perceive God.
Yes.
And I think then we must remember that. However, those midweek demonstrations, people are gathering to see Jack doing offering his abilities as a medium and giving wonderful messages. And then it can become slightly more entertaining. And I love nothing more than to see mediums showing their personality, as long as it's within respect of the evening and respect of the client and of the communicating spirit and the spirit world as a whole. Part of right now, as you said, that Lawrence is doing a service downstairs in the Paul Church, and Jeanette and I know you have, we've had the honour of serving Paul Spiritualist Church.
Yeah.
And part of it, which is a very modern idea, is of course there is a healing moment where many churches will have a healing moment. But what's slightly different about the Paul Spiritualist Church one is the chairperson will offer individuals in the church, in the congregation, to voice the name of the person that they want the healing to go out to. What a modern yet spiritually powerful way of offering up that healing, to voice your loved one's name, who you want that healing to go out to. And I wish more churches would embrace that. A very, very modern way. Some people may even see that as a very uplifting, slightly entertaining way of doing healing, but a very powerful spiritual way of doing it, of expressing that love that you have for an individual that you're concerned for, because maybe they're physically going through a bad time. So it doesn't have to be just through the act of mediumship. I beg your pardon, addresses the philosophy.
Yeah.
Why can't we involve music?
Yeah.
Within the philosophy.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Music can tell beautiful stories.
Yes.
Intertwined with the verbal philosophy input of the medium. I did a Jeanette, my wife, is a teacher for a very advanced group at the Stafford Spiritualist Church. And Jeanette invited me to come along and take the class as the teacher, not last week, the week before. And I said, well, I don't want to do mediumship per se. I want to do something spiritual and modern. And I took them through a journey of their development from before they was a medium up until the current day, through music. And every one of them was leaving saying that was amazing. Some of them were in tears, in a positive way. They were moved from what the power of the words of the song, as long as you pick the right songs, of course, and you're inspired by spirit with the songs. Why can't we have music support what the medium is saying and the words of songs within our philosophy? Why can't we have, we spoke about double links in mediumship, then why can't we have two mediums or more doing the philosophy.
Yes.
So you have a slightly different opinion on the same subject matter within the philosophy to make it slightly more, dare I say the word, entertaining, uplifting, modern in its presentation, different for the congregation than the everyday coffee that we have, or the everyday tea that we have.
Yeah. And I myself personally, I actually love to share this philosophy. I actually think we did it once, didn't we?
I think we did, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and talking about this make me think of. I've had some chats with Lawrence as well about it. The way the mediums in the UK are how hard they have been working. Just like a Sunday service, that they doing prayers, that they are doing philosophy, they're doing mediumship, and all these things. When we're doing services here in Denmark, we will share that between more mediums, 2 or 3, sometimes 4 mediums, where one will do the prayers, one will do the reading, another one will do the philosophy, and we will share the mediumship.
Yeah, or even better, Jack. You know, I've had the pleasure of working in Canada 2 times, in Calgary, which is where they had the Winter Olympics once back in the day, and it was a funny story. I did it with the lovely Libby Clark, and we're sitting in the mediums room, just about to go in and do their divine service, and we're talking, trying to organise who's going to do what. And he's saying, I'll do the philosophy, you do the opening and closing prayer, Tim, and we'll do the mediumship together. And an elderly lady said, I have to stop you there. You won't be doing any of that. And we went, why is that? And she said, you're mediums, aren't you?
Yeah.
And we said, well, yeah. And then you do mediumship.
Yeah.
She said, I'm the minister here. I'm the resident minister in this church. I'll be doing the philosophy. I'll be doing the opening and closing prayer.
Yeah.
And it was so much easier, or certainly for me as a medium, to just put my whole energy into the mediumship, as opposed to dilute it with the prayer, which I'm very happy to do. But if it's shared, or if different mediums are allocated to do different parts, I think you get the best out of the medium doing that particular job.
Yes.
And maybe that's what we should be looking at.
Yeah, and I know, of course, that there is can be a financial issue for the churches if they have to pay more mediums for transport and petrol and things like that. But I think what a lot of churches have circles going on. They have fledglings hanging around that not really getting the opportunity to step into the services, because if they're stepping up there, they have to do the entire service. So I believe there should be a lot of upcoming mediums that would be able to take a little part of the service. And
absolutely,
to me, it would help the churches to create a platform to lift new mediums up to a new standard, and to get a new experiences and getting the sense of the service and the sense of serving spirit on the platform. So
yeah, absolutely, Jack. You know, again, when I was a young man, beginning to get to grips with my mediumship and my understanding and my belief system, which of course is spiritualism, a lot of churches would have a big focus on their in-house students, and maybe once or twice a year you would see students doing fledgling evenings, and some churches, you know, will do a Sunday divine service And the chairperson will say, okay, the divine service is finished now, but now we're going to, so if you want to leave, you can. However, if you want to stay, we've got two of our advanced students from the church who are now going to give 2 messages each.
Yeah.
So if you like, it was like an extension of the service. And some people would get up and leave and say, no, I want to catch the early bus. But maybe a good 50% of the congregation would stay to support the fledgling mediums, who of course are the future of spiritualism and mediumship.
Yes.
We're not seeing enough of those types of things. I know Jeanette, some of Jeanette's students are taking a service in our church, but you're hearing of it less and less these days. Where are the mediums, where are the spiritualists of the future going to come from? Something else I need to talk to you about, Jack, is the community of spiritualism.
Yeah.
When was the last time you said to somebody in your family? I saw on Facebook you visited, I think recently, your mum and dad, and I hope they are well. But when was the last time you said to someone in your family, I love you? And I'm sure that's been very recent.
Yeah.
But when was the last time we said to somebody, a fellow spiritualist, I love you?
Yeah.
You just don't see it in church. You just don't see it. Or I respect you as a fellow spiritualist.
Yeah.
You just don't see it. What you do here is people bickering in corners about other people because they don't like the way they made the tea, or they don't like the dress they're wearing, or something like that.
Yeah.
When again in the past you just didn't hear it and see it. And if we want to go forward, we've got to embrace as a community. We really have. And it doesn't matter if you're the in-house medium. It doesn't matter if you're the in-house healer, chairperson, president, part of the congregation as a spiritualist. We should all be equal in that communication, in that community, that family of spiritualists, and be open with our respect that we have for each other. And then as that community, there's strength in numbers, isn't there? In that community, what we call spiritualism, that family that we call spiritualism. And then we've got a chance in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do believe there is a future for spiritualism, as well as mediumship. But I also think that's maybe we should talk, when we're talking about mediumship, we should talk more about the philosophy as well. Because like doing the address, doing the philosophy, that's basically, it's mediumship as well.
There's a wonderful dark-skinned lady who's a accredited tutor of the SNU, who has her own internet services that she has, and Anne-Marie, I can't think of her surname.
Anne-Marie Bonn.
Anne-Marie Bonn. Thank you very
Yes.
much, Jack. And I've had the pleasure of taking her services, I think about 3 times now over the last couple of years. There is no mediumship in as much as pretty messages from our loved ones from the spirit world. There is lots of philosophy, lots of prayers. It involves the congregation. It involves the congregation. And it's so well attended. And it's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it is lovely. I've joined them a few times as well, and it is lovely.
Absolutely.
It is.
Spiritualism is more than just a pretty message off of a planet.
Yeah.
And we have to get back to that.
Yes. And I'd say, like, here in Denmark, spiritualism is brand new. In all respect, but even though we have been doing services for 10 or 15 years, about that we have been doing services. One of the things that have brought me a lot of happiness is quite a few people have come to me and said after a service, you know what, we don't really need the messages. We are coming for the prayers, the philosophy, for the songs, and that has really pleased me that in Denmark, where it's spiritualism is still a bit weird thing, it has pleased me that so many people actually have made that comment.
Yeah, no, I agree, Jack. I
Uh,
agree. I love giving messages,
yes,
and I try to be as factual as I can. But equally, I love the prayers and the philosophy, and they are equally important. And
yeah,
people who come to church are seeking something. Maybe they're broken. Not everybody, of course, but maybe they're broken. Maybe they're going to be going through grief. Maybe they are searching for something within themselves, awakening their own spiritual unfoldment, their own mystical development, and they need their spirit to be fed and nurtured, and pretty messages from the spirit world cannot do it alone.
no,
And sadly, we haven't got enough good speakers, I think, within spiritualism.
no, and I think a part of that is a little bit maybe what we was talking about earlier about this instant thing. Everybody wants to become a star.
Absolutely. Yeah, I
Everyone
agree.
wants to become a star, and it's like doing the philosophies. Oh, that don't make you a star. I want to give the pretty messages and things like that. Uh, uh, a thing that has been to me from my early years has been when I came to UK and met spiritualism. What I actually fall in love with what was the philosophy behind the mediumship as well. It's like suddenly everything gave meaning to me.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I thought, oh, we should have this in Denmark as well.
Yeah.
You know,
Um,
yeah,
I think without the philosophy and without the prayers, a mediumship just becomes a parlor trick,
yeah,
and becomes, we touched on it earlier, becomes entertainment that you can go and see in a theatre anywhere. You know, there's and forgive me if I get this slightly wrong. In 2013, there was a new ruling brought out in England by Lord Tolson that for a religion to hold the status of religion, for a church to hold the status of church, within the philosophy, it has to be educational. Within the service, it has to be educational. And of course, philosophy and prayer can do that.
yeah,
You know, philosophy can educate us that we can grow in other ways than just through materialistic things, like I've got a new suit, I've got a bigger car, I've just bought a bigger house. There are other ways of growth, and philosophy can do that and educate us in those spiritual matters that are an important ingredients in our life, of course.
yeah. And I think it just makes me think of an experience we had for in one of our Christmas services. There was I didn't know at the moment, but there was a lady in the congregation that was taken in by her daughter, but she wasn't really comfortable with it because this with speaking to dead people and things like that. She was a little bit, frightened of it. I did the address and things, and the service was going on. And later on, she actually had a message as well from Spirit. After the service, she came to me and said, "You know what? When you were doing that address, I felt you were speaking to me. You were speaking about my life and my loved ones."
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
that gave me comfort. And that actually made her able to put her hand up and say, "This might be for me."
Yeah.
So without
Yeah.
the address, she would never have put her hand up.
Yeah. Of course, the philosophy will touch, or has the ability to touch everybody.
Definitely.
Each message will just touch one person, the
Yeah.
recipient.
Yes.
But everybody, the power of philosophy is that it has the ability to touch everybody. I used to love it as a young man to go and watch someone like Gene Bassett, if you remember Gene Bassett,
Yeah.
Glenn Edwards,
Yeah.
great speakers of spiritualism back in the day, and you'd float out of that church, out of that centre, wherever you were. You'd float out there because you were so inspired, you were so charged by the philosophy.
Yeah.
I remember Jack teaching at the college, and I think it was a student from Switzerland who said to me once, "You know, Tim, spiritualism is like a 3-course meal, and mediumship is just the side salad."
Yeah.
And it's so true.
Yeah.
I think we have in recent years focused on that side salad, and sooner or later people will become tired of the side salad.
Yeah.
And they will want more of the main meal.
Yeah.
And so we have to be all embracive of the whole of what spiritualism can offer, the whole of what the word of spirit can offer through our mediumship to those who choose to congregate in our churches, in our centres.
Yeah.
And if we lose sight of that, because at the end of the day, we do need to look back to the pioneers and to the mediums and the spiritualists and the spiritual leaders of the past, without a doubt. But they were responsible for spiritualism in their day and the foundation that they left for the future. We are responsible for spiritualism right now and for the foundation that we leave for the spiritualists of tomorrow. There will always be a need for spiritualism because it embraces those who are searching, it embraces those, it heals those who are grieving. Both you and I have lost children, although neither of our children were actually children. They were both adults, but they are our children. And I'm sure, I know it was for me, and I'm sure it was for you, Jack, that our belief system supported us through those dark nights and through those dark days of losing children. And there are many people out there who need that comfort, who need that spiritual support and nurturing. And spiritualism can do that when it's in its healthy state. And we've had an opportunity of stillness in the lockdown to have a look at our religion, to rebuild, and to come back with strength. And for me, I don't know that I'm seeing it, but we have the opportunity still to make it modern, to make it more accessible to people. For example, forgive me, Jack, 'cause I'm going on a lot, but in England, and I'm sure it's the same in Denmark, in England, we have religious education in schools. We call it RE, religious education. And the teachers will teach about different religions, which is beautiful, which is wonderful. But I've yet to hear within RE, within schools, spiritualism spoke about.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean it has to be there has to be a demonstration of mediumship to children. I'm not suggesting that, but the
No.
philosophy and the prayers of spiritualism
Yes.
can come into it. The 7
Yeah.
principles of spiritualism can be spoke about.
Yeah.
And I think we have to maybe be a little bit more loud as well as spiritualists to be heard. You know, if we just stand in our corners in our churches and do the same old,
Yeah.
and don't rock the boat every now and then, we're not going to get things changed.
No.
And we just have to be heard a little bit more, maybe.
Yeah, and I think to be heard in a modern society, kind of need to become more modern as well.
Absolutely.
It's easy to people to turn around and look at us and know for certain here in Denmark, oh, are you a sect?
And I know you're changing that. I know you're pushing it through your government to become legally recognised as a religion, which is a wonderful thing. And I take my hat off to you for the work that you're doing.
But I've just been on a big fair in Copenhagen where we had a stall with the Danish Spiritualist Association.
Yeah, I saw that.
And what made me happy there was actually a teacher coming, teaching in school, teaching about religion in school, and he had some of his students from a class with him.
Brilliant.
And he came and spoke to us, and really interesting to, wow, let me hear about your view on religion. What kind of religion are you presenting and things like that. I was like, wow, that was really something, because I know he will go away to talk to his students.
From little acorns come mighty oak trees, Jack.
Exactly.
Perfect.
And we wasn't talking about mediumship. We are talking about spiritualism.
It's just the side salad.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Of course, mediumship is a part of.
Of course it is.
But it's to me, it's not the main thing, and it shouldn't be the main thing.
And as you say, it's just part of, very important part.
Yes.
It's just part of. Yeah.
Definitely, it's very important part. But it's just like that. Like the philosophy is even more important part. The prayers are an important part.
Yeah. We've spoke a lot about mediums being more modern in their presentation there, Jack.
Yes.
But, churches, church committees and people who run churches have to take a responsibility of not being too staid and moving their religious services and their ideas forward. Otherwise you're not going to be inviting the young people into your churches, who are the future, of course.
No.
And I know, the foundation of this tonight is Paul Spiritualist Church.
Yes.
And they're very modern thinking.
Very much.
I would like to see more of where and I've only ever done it once, where mediums brainstorm.
Yeah.
Where mediums come together and brainstorm, or where I know the SNU do this, where church elders, like committees and presidents, come together and brainstorm. There should be more of them. I went to one meeting of mediums, and they invited me along, and I presented a question. In one demonstration of mediumship, can you have too much evidence? And they all said no. And I said, well, of course you can.
Yeah, you can.
Because if it's evidence, becomes like a shopping list, of course.
Yeah.
And you lose the essence and the presence of the spirit.
Yeah.
You lose the essence and the love of the message within it. And the very reason why your loved ones have stepped forward from the spirit side of life. By the end of the evening, I think some of them were coming round to what I was saying there.
Yeah.
And I think there's great value in sharing ideas like this very evening that we're having now. where you and I are bouncing off each other. And I think having meetings of mediums or church elders are very important, because you become inspired by each other, hopefully in a modern way.
Yeah. And yeah, and hopefully an evening like this, the two of us chatting here, but also know, as we're talking about pool church, these lyceums is every Saturday evening. And I'm just saying this because I think we are coming getting up to an end of the evening here, but the modern style, the modern getting out there, meet the younger people as well with the technology. We should maybe have had somebody younger with us tonight to sort out the technology anyway. But we are getting there. We are getting there. So any last comments, Tim?
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So if we go back to the past, Jack.
Yes.
Because we are the future right now. The current is the future of the past. And you and I are the outcome of the foundations that the past mediums and spiritualists laid for people like you and I. But can we imagine how more difficult it would have been for people like you and I if they'd have said, "Oh, do you know what? I can't be bothered."
Yeah.
If Emma Harding's Britain had said, I can't be bothered to share the principles that I've been inspired with by the Spirit, I can't be bothered. Can we imagine what it would have been like for people like you and I if Helen Duncan, when she'd have come out of prison, had said, "Oh, that was terrible. I can't be bothered to do mediumship anymore through fear of going back into prison." For people like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, who was the highest paid author, certainly in Britain, maybe in the world, at the time that he stopped to promote spiritualism. If he said, "Oh, I can't be bothered, I'll just go and earn the money that I'm earning off of my books, the Arthur Conan Doyle books. I'll just rake in the money. I don't care about spiritualism." They stepped up and they made a difference. We have a responsibility that the present mediums and spiritualists have, and everybody who goes and sits in that congregation on a Sunday in their church, we all have a responsibility to be that ambassador, that voice for spirit, for the future mediums and the future spiritualists. And if we don't step up to the plate, if we don't embrace that responsibility, and then we can't moan when our churches start closing.
I can only agree with you on that one. And looking back in time, really need to appreciate what the pioneers of the past have done for spiritualism. But I also think we have to be careful not to be stuck in the past.
Absolutely.
If we're going to move spiritualism forward, as we talked about earlier as well, sometimes we need to challenge the knowledge, challenge question the past, appreciate it, and know what those people have done for spiritualism. We wouldn't have been where we are today without them. But they are still in the past. It, like you say, we are the even though we're not that young, we are the future right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I challenge churches. I challenge spiritualist churches right now. Do your raffles. Do your selling secondhand toys and clothing, and do your demonstrations to raise money. Raise money for a TV, for a large screen TV for your church, so you can put your services on Zoom. How wonderful it would be if every church in the land, in every country, stream their services, not only in person, but on Zoom for those people who can't attend for whatever reason. Fantastic. We should be thinking in that modern way. I
Yes.
challenge churches to do that. That's it. I've said my piece.
Yes. Thank you, Tim. Thank you ever so much. And I know Lawrence is very, very thankful as well. Maybe not that as much as me, as I have messed up the technique, but hey, I'll survive.
You're still better looking than him.
Yeah. So, just a few notices. Tomorrow on Sunday in church, there's a service on with Kiss Eggleton. Starts at 11 British time, and it will be streamed on the Facebook page. And next Saturday, another Lyceum. Not sure who is on yet. Needs to be confirmed. But same time next week on Saturday, a new Lyceum night is coming up. So with this, we will just say thank you all that have been attending, and thank you to all that probably would watch on recap. And thank you very much, Tim, for spending your time with Poole Christian Spiritualist Church here and with me. So always
My
a pleasure.
My pleasure to work with you again, Jack. Yes. God bless you, mate. Please send your love to your good lady, and hey, together let's move forward.
Yes. And you must send a love to Janet as well. And thank you all out there. A lot of love to you. Go and kiss somebody, tell them that you love them.
Absolutely.
Good night, everybody. See you next week.